What is death? We mortals have had many thousands of years to think about the inevitable. Traditionally, people see two options. Either you cease to exist, or part of you lives on, somewhere else. But there's actually a third possibility, and although lesser known, the awareness of it has existed since ancient times. We'll get to the third option shortly. Let's first review the two most common beliefs about death. To do that, we're going back some 2,000 years and read a tombstone from ancient Rome. Marcus Augulnius Rufio, freedman of his namesake, is here and is not. This is not just a dry and depressing epitaph. Marcus Augulnius, or the relative who paid for his grave, has left to posterity a little dose of black humor, making good use of the flexibility of the verb to be. In his view, death is the opposite of existence. Somewhat more serious, the contemporary Roman philosopher Seneca wrote along the same lines. Mors est, non esse. That means, death equals not to be, or being dead means that you do not exist. After death, you are what you were before conception. Nothing. No sight, no sound, just this. So life is seen as a couple of heartbeats interrupting nothingness, so to speak. Other gravestones play on this idea. I was nothing, that is, before I existed. Now I am nothing. To nothing from nothing, how quickly do we fall back? Because the brevity of life is so difficult to grapple with, a joke may help to alleviate the bitterness. About a century before Seneca, the Roman orator Cicero from the times of Julius Caesar wrote a book about being old. In it, Cicero puts the following words into the mouth of his character, Cato.
What a miserable old man is he who after such a long life has not yet understood that he need not worry about death. You must either not worry at all if death completely extinguishes your consciousness, or you must even long for it if you go to a place where you will exist forever.
In these words, we read the two opposing views that most people have today. With death, you either completely cease to exist, or death is a transition to an afterlife, either with or without a series of reincarnations. The text continues.
A third possibility does not exist.
But hold on. A third possibility does exist. The two options mentioned by Cicero have in common that they are final. No dead person ever returns as the person he or she was. The transition from being to not being, or to being somewhere else, is irreversible. But shortly after the beginning of the Christian era, a rather different concept became more widely known. Death is a temporary problem, a situation that can be undone, thanks to the resurrection. The Gospel of John relates about Lazarus, a friend of Jesus. In the 11th chapter, it is related how Jesus told his close friends about his upcoming activities.
Our friend Lazarus is asleep, and I am going there to wake him up.
His friends, however, thought Jesus was talking about literal sleep, so he told them plainly,
Lazarus is dead.
To refer to death as sleeping had existed as a euphemism in Greek literature for centuries. Saying that beloved ones who have died are asleep sounds less appalling than saying they are dead. But Jesus had no need for euphemisms. He actually saw death differently, as sleep, from which one can be awakened.
Our friend Lazarus is asleep, and I am going there to wake him up.
Further on, it is obvious that a sister of Lazarus understood the concept of waking up from the dead and linked it to a moment in the distant future.
Your brother will live again.
I know he will be raised to life on the last day when all the dead are raised.
But Jesus gave a stunning preview of the resurrection by raising Lazarus from the dead that very day.
Lazarus, come out!
In his view, death is not the end, nor a transition to a completely different body or to a different dimension. It is only a pause. We see this idea reflected in the fact that a Christian graveyard is called a cemetery, a word of Greek origin that literally means dormitory. And many Christian gravestones are adorned with the acronym RIP, short for the Latin expression Requiescat in pace, rest in peace. Rest, that is, until it's time to wake up. In this view, death will only last until the renewed eternal life can begin. The final book of the Bible, Revelation, refers to this future as a time when there will be no more death and all human suffering will be over. It is not life that briefly interrupts nothingness. It is death that temporarily pauses life. So in this third option, a human being does not fundamentally change because of death. He or she is only out of reach for a limited time until the resurrection that is promised in the future. Remember poor old Marcus Aurelius? He never believed in the second option, but what if he was to wake up one day? People would see him and say, Marcus Aurelius is here, and he is.